Starting off this countdown, we have Trump's presidency. I swear, this is the prediction that started it all. Back in 2000s, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Bart to the Future. Basically, in this episode, Bart gets a glimpse into what the future is gonna be like. In the episode, we see that Lisa Simpson is the president and is attempting to rebuild the economy after President Trump has left the office. In the episode, during a cabinet meeting, we see Lisa in the Oval Office as she talks about the aftermath of President Trump's reign. She actually uses the words President Trump. And then fast forward a couple of years later, Trump indeed became president. Now this shocked a lot of people because how did they predict his presidency 16 years before it actually happened? Like, that's just too freaky. Coming in at number 9, we have the economic prediction. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up because you know what, it really helps us out. In the same episode and the same scene I was just talking about, we see what happens after Trump leaves office. While in the show, Lisa ends up being his successor, which obviously is not gonna happen in real life because she's not real. We do see something that Lisa has to deal with that might be similar to what Joe Biden will have to deal with. In the episode, after being voted the next president, Lisa mentions how she will be taking office in a time where the economy is really struggling. And you know what? The pandemic has had an unprecedented effect on not just the American economy, but has truly impacted our global economy as well. It's kind of crazy how they not only predicted the fact that President Trump would win the election, but also just more detail about him leaving office. I honestly would love to take a peek at the crystal ball that the writers seem to have. Coming in at number 8, we have the election results. Back in 2012, it said that The Simpsons managed to predict the exact outcome of the 2020 election results. This one is fairly creepy. So the prediction takes place in a Fox special called Mr. Burns Endorses Romney, and it was for the 2012 presidential election. It's only a minute and 50 seconds long, but in it we see Mr. Burns in front of a map, showing the red and blue states for the election. What's freaky is that they look very similar to the 2020 Biden and Trump electoral map. I mean, at first glance, it looks identical, meaning The Simpsons somehow predicted the outcome of each and every state. Upon closer inspection, they did get one thing wrong, which was Arizona. The show had it as a red state, but in reality it was blue. Still, how did they manage to pretty much get the exact election results? Keep in mind, the episode is 8 years old. Coming in at number 7, we have Trump's death. This image of an animated President Trump in a coffin has circulated the internet many times, especially in the last 4 years. In 2020, the image gained much more popularity after President Trump, as well as his wife, were tested positive for the coronavirus. Then people began to speculate that The Simpsons predicted President Trump passing away. Last year, there was a TikTok that went viral telling people that on the 27th of August, something big was gonna happen. More and more people began to run with this trend, and soon everyone was talking about what was going to happen on the 27th of August, and it ended up getting linked to this image from The Simpsons. People were saying that the episode had predicted his death and that it would occur on that date. Well, obviously that didn't happen, as it turns out the picture was actually fake. While most people assumed it was a still taken from an episode, this actually never happened once throughout the series. But who knows, maybe in the future The Simpsons will come out with an episode that will have that. Who knows? And at number 6, we have the Civil War. With the events that took place on January 6th at Capitol Hill, the hashtag Civil War is trending on Twitter. A lot of people are scared that a war will break out once Joe Biden takes Trump's spot at president. Let's hope that's not the case. But people quickly turn to The Simpsons to see how this might pan out. You know, because they're psychic. In particular, let's look at the Treehouse of Horror Halloween special. In this special, which aired on November 1st, 2020, it starts with Homer having to vote for either Putin or Trump in the election. Fast forward, the episode cuts to a scene that says January 20th, 2021, Inauguration Day. And it's basically the apocalypse. Homer is on his roof wearing pots and pans as armor. Typical Homer. While his town is destroyed and on fire. Obviously, inauguration hasn't happened yet, but people are fearful that when it does, a civil war will happen, and that this Simpsons prediction will come true. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the statue stealing. Now there are 2 instances of statue stealing that I want to talk about that may have foreshadowed that photo that I'm sure you guys have all seen of one of the rioters carrying the podium around after he stormed Capitol Hill. The first time is in an episode called The Telltale Head, where we see Bart steal the head of the Jebediah Springfield statue. The second instance is from season 11 episode 12 called The Mansion Family. In this episode, as the family is leaving an award show after Homer didn't win an award, we see him attempting to drag a much larger version of the award statue out of the venue with him. He exclaims to the family, "What a great night it was for everyone," before Marge quickly lets him know that the statue is not an award, but actually is set decoration. While this isn't an exact prediction of the events that we saw at Capitol Hill, that guy carrying the podium probably could have just used some of Marge's advice. And when you compare the images side by side, it does look a little freaky. In our fourth spot, we have Ivanka 2028. In the season 28 Halloween episode of The Simpsons, right at the beginning, we see the family dressed up in costumes as they are trick-or-treating. Homer is dressed as Bender from Futurama, which is a hilarious crossover joke, but that's not why we're here. At one point, Homer opens up the front part of his costume to reveal that he's wearing an Ivanka 2028 pin. Now, it's only 2021, so we don't know if she's gonna run in 2028. Who knows, okay? It's The Simpsons. It could happen. Moving on to number 3, we have The Rioter. On January 6th of 2021, an angry mob of President Trump's supporters stormed Capitol Hill. As you've probably heard, there were thousands of rioters that showed up to cause violence, and you get the gist. They began smashing windows and vandalizing the building, and the rioters ended up getting into the Senate chamber, where prior the election results were being certified. Many were seen waving Trump 2020 flags or wearing Keep America Great memorabilia. After this happened, an image started circulating on Twitter of what happens to be groundskeeper Willie, wearing an outrageous outfit with tattoos and face paint on his body. In fact, it was the same outfit that a rioter named Jake Angeli was wearing as he stormed Capitol Hill. Both Willie and Jake were seen wearing a fur hat with horns sticking out. They had face paint on their face in the colors of the American flag, and they have the same tattoos. This freaked everyone out. Like, how could The Simpsons predict this down to every last detail? Now, it turns out that this prediction is false. It had been photoshopped on purpose to look like the rioter. But The Simpsons may have still predicted the riots. Which takes me to my next point. And at number 2, we have the riots. So let's continue on with the recent riot that happened at Capitol Hill. What's creepy is the fact that The Simpsons might have predicted this in a number of different episodes. One of the times was during an episode titled Beyond Blunderdome, which was released in 1999. This episode features Mel Gibson and is meant to be a parody of the film Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. In this episode, Mel's character starts shooting at congressmen and causes hell on the Senate floor. It ends with him blowing up the building. Thankfully, that did not happen, but people think that this episode foreshadows what is yet to come. And in our number 1 spot, we have the storming of Capitol Hill. Again, another very scary prediction about Capitol Hill. For this, let's take a look at the 1996 episode titled The Day the Violence Died. This episode was meant to be a parody of the 1976 Schoolhouse Rock segment, I'm Just a Bill. The Simpsons version was I'm an amendment to be. In the episode, when the amendment is ratified, the character then says, "Doors open, boys," to which a ton of other amendment or bill looking characters start storming up the steps of the Capitol Hill building. They're holding a bunch of weapons to defend themselves. Some have been making the comparison that this is what the actual scene at the Capitol building looked like on January 6th. It's pretty creepy.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Tom Hanks, the spokesman. Back in 2007, The Simpsons hit the big screen. The Simpsons movie, of course, was full of celebrity cameos. One of the most memorable was, of course, Tom Hanks. Yeah, and in case we didn't recognize him, his first line in the movie is, "Hello, I'm Tom Hanks." Gets a good laugh every time. He continues by saying the US government has lost its credibility, so now it's borrowing some of his. As long as it's not Chet Hanks, the future is looking pretty bright. Cut to 2022, Tom Hanks still looks great, ages like fine wine, as of course. But now he's a real-life spokesperson for the US government. This time around, he's not animated, and this time around, he's supporting the Biden administration. Number 9, No More Goodbyes. In season 11, episode 17, titled Bart to the Future, an episode we obviously mentioned a couple times in this series, goodbyes are no longer needed. There you go. In this bright new future, everybody says, "Smell you later." That would be so helpful, just to say one thing all the time, like a uniform goodbye, know what I'm saying? Instead of improvising on the spot and sounding like an idiot, I can't even end YouTube videos and I script them, you know what I'm saying? saying I can't sound cool leaving a video I've scripted. I'm like, hey, hit that thumbs up and stay funky. What? I'm throwing peace signs, I'm trying to be cool. I don't know. There's a lot of pressure in a goodbye. Smell you later is way better. It's smooth. Imagine doctors telling you bad news. They're like, I think it's time to call the family and we should start saying our smell you laters. They're like, word. Number 8, space billionaires. Of course, in a part 2, we have to include a Simpsons prediction that's truly out of this world. Billionaires just love space, eh? I guess when you've bought everything you could ever dream of on Earth, you need to seek out to the cosmos for some inspiration. The Simpsons predicted Richard Branson's space excursion back in season 25 in the episode titled The War of Art. That was back in 2014, and recently, Richard Branson blasted off planet to float around Virgin Airlines for a bit. Just cause he could. NASA is now partnering up with film studios and Tom Cruise, so this is really just the beginning of what we'll see in space as far as billionaires go. Number 7, Ivanka 2028. The Simpsons predicting Trump's presidency is pretty wild, I'll be honest. That one's like, really? They nailed that one? Okay. This next one, honestly, who knows? Out of everything on this list, this one seems the most likely so far. The Simpsons may have predicted another Trump presidency. This one comes from season 28, episode 4, Treehouse of Horror 27. The episode originally aired on October 16th, 2016, and it opens up with Bart asking Homer why he's taking the family Christmas tree shopping on Halloween. Homer replies, because in America, everything's way too early. And then he reveals a pin that says Ivanka 2028. Number 6, talking houses. Here we go. Another fun future I would be so on board with. Talking houses, Ultra House 3000. This was seen in Treehouse of Horror number 12. It's a fully autonomous house produced by the Ultra House company. It can be installed as the house is being built initially, or it can be added to an already existing property. So we all get a talking house. How lovely is that? We all get one. Chris, you get one. I get one. Matthew Perry and Pierce Brosnan voiced the Ultra House 3000, so if this ever does become a reality, I'm for sure getting Matthew Perry to hold the ship down while I'm grocery shopping, for sure. Just talking to my plants all day. These future Ultra Houses will ideally cook for you. It'll do chores, prepare baths, light some candles, make it intimate and all, and being equipped with AI, it can entertain all day long. Fridges nowadays tell you when you're running out of food, so honestly I give it 10 years before Alexa starts telling us to go to bed. Number 5, talking cars. Gotta mention this one while we're at it. Talking cars. This is the dream. We've all waited for this, and it's close. Dare I say it's arrived. We've all hit the horn at one point in traffic with force, you know? Like part of you wishes the person in front of you could just feel that in the back of their stupid head. Well, back in 1999, an electric car was seen as the punchline in season 11's Beyond Plunderdome episode. Homer drives an electric car called the Electorus because he wants a free giveaway item afterwards. But during the mandatory joyride, Homer ends up crashing the car off of a cliff accidentally and then setting it on fire. At this point, the car uses its own voice chip to call for help. Today, we're close to that. Of course, electric cars are much more popular now, but services like BMW Assist are now available, so if you were to get into an accident, God forbid, information is automatically sent out. Tesla recently added a boombox mode to their cars, so now you can put silly noises instead of a horn. You can make music come from your car, hence the title boombox mode. So what if you customize the horn to say horrible things? What if you customize the horn and then drive around town spreading fake news at the push of a button? You know what I mean? I would make my horn sound like this. Excuse me. Number 4, hover cars. I don't get the pull with hover cars. We're like, oh, it's gonna hover a foot and then do the same as a car. What? They're still on the road. They're still in the way. They're still fat and stupid. I don't know. I don't like cars. Unless we're talking about flying cars, that's way better. That's different. Unless we're talking about Simpsons Hit and Run, that hover car slaps. That's the only hover car that I'll buy. Well, hover cars could be a thing come 2024. We're pretty close. How lucky are we? I've been hit by a car, but I haven't been hit by a hover car before, so let's add that to the list. Lacuna Technologies believes that they're close. They're close. They're getting there. Chief Executive Officer Hugh Martin says most people will likely still travel on the road in electric or self-driving vehicles at this point. I don't have a car, let alone a hover car, so unless Homeboy's giving these things out for free, I'll be taking the hover bus. Until then, thanks. Number 3. The Homer. This one feels the most likely in terms of cars and futuristic car stuff. I feel like Jeep guys are pretty close to this one. The episode titled Oh Brother, Where Art Thou from Simpsons Season 2 features this futuristic supervillain looking car. The episode has Homer meeting his half-brother, Herbert Powell, and Homer straight up bankrupts this guy. Homer designs this new vehicle that everyone's supposed to use and ends up costing thousands. Looks stupid, has like 2 domes for an interior, a speaker on top if you feel like sharing your thoughts loudly to passerbyers, all the good stuff. And just this month, in 2022, it's how recently we're talking here, BMW showed off the new iX Flow concept that allows users to change their car's color. Project lead Stella Clark says the changing color concept is kinda crazy, but can offer plenty of help. Like real help. Charging status can be displayed on the vehicle, and if you can make it blink and change colors, it's easier to spot in a parking lot. Let's hope Optimus Prime next door doesn't have epilepsy, then we're good. As of right now, the BMW iX can only change colors through scales of white, gray, and black, but the technology can theoretically provide other colors as well. Custom cars is the future, Meanwhile, I'm still customizing skaters on Tony Hawk Underground 2. Number 2, AI medicine. In season 23 of The Simpsons, we have an episode titled Holidays of Futures Past. And as the title suggests, as well as this video, this is a glimpse into the near future. Well, not really near. This time around, it's 30 years in the future, and we have a young, well rather older, pregnant Maggie. And she's being given a sonogram by a medbot. Not a doctor with a human body, a medbot. Sans body. So creepy. This is so scary. The medbot still has a face, a digital face. That's a little comforting at least. It's a screen with a smiley face on it. Or a sad face, depending on the news. Is this the future? Is it happening now? Zoom comedy shows were one thing, but consulting a doctor during the pandemic over Zoom? Come on, like we're trying to swab ourselves, we're like hammering our own knees. What's happening? What are we doing here? Are we close? Let's do it. Artificial intelligence replacing doctors sounds like an absolute nightmare because, you know, we've seen Black Mirror and any horror movie. Okay, Dr. Alexa, give me stitches. Good luck. You missed. Hope you don't glitch mid-procedure. See ya. Right now, we're at a point where AI can enhance clinical productivity by getting artificial intelligence to, you know, handle administrative work, all that stuff. Bertolon Mesco, known as the medical futurist, refers to AI as the stethoscope of the 21st century. Yeah, what, made of metal and all cold on your chest? I've seen too many movies, man. This happens, and then the iPad takes your temperature, then the iPad takes your wallet, then the iPad takes over the world. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with a sore throat, confused, wondering what year it is. AI anything is bad news. Stay away from my tonsils. And finally, coming in at number 1, President Schwarzenegger. Hasta la vote, baby. Haha, I'd get that on a shirt. I'm just saying, I'd get that printed out. Imagine if this guy actually won. I mean, I know we said those exact words before in history, but really, can you imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger ran and then won as the president of the United States of America? If this rings a bell, it's because the jacked bodybuilder, family actor guy, he was the president in the Simpsons movie from 2007. As former governor of California, it wasn't a surprise to see the Terminator get an upgrade in the hit animated film. And for this one, we can look forward to not having Kindergarten Cop as the United States president because he was born in Austria. He's not a natural born citizen of the US. But you know what? Never say never, because I feel like we've seen crazier before, right? After all, the guy can go back in time. Haven't you seen Terminator?
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Bye Bye Son. Let's take it back to season 6, episode 25, to The Simpsons episode titled Who Shot Mr. Burns, Part 1. In this episode, Mr. Burns makes a crazy decision in order to have some more financial gain. I mean, surprise, surprise when it comes to the money-hungry mogul. The decision he makes, however, is to permanently block the sun from shining down on Springfield, and he does this so that people can't rely on solar power at all and instead need to rely on electricity from his power plant. Yes, it's a very greedy plan, but some think this may be a prediction of things to come. There are, of course, space laws and treaties, but it's also kind of a difficult thing to manage, and it has people asking if, as space exploration and travel becomes more privatized and accessible, for lack of a better term, space will soon become like the wild, wild west. It doesn't necessarily have to be by way of blocking the sun. Of course, that is dramatic and would have a far greater negative impact on our world than any sort of positive financial gain, but it definitely is a thing that has people wondering, will someone soon try and use some sort of cosmic power to hold the world hostage for their own financial or political gain? Only time will tell. In our number 9 spot today, we have Contamination. The 2007 Simpsons movie is a classic, but there are people who believe it may contain a grim prediction for our near future. In the movie, the town of Springfield gets put into quarantine, I know that word still sends shivers down my back, after an environmental disaster which results in their own town being covered in a glass dome. What caused this disaster is that Homer dumped a silo of pig waste into the lake and it polluted the water. The water then became so toxic that the EPA was ready to blow the entire town up. This could perhaps be the foreshadow of a real world event to come. I mean, we are constantly dumping things in places that they really shouldn't be, and sometimes it's just because we don't have any better ideas. I mean, for example, Lake Karachay in Russia. While it was once just a regular old lake, starting in 1951, the Soviet Union began using it as a dumping ground for radioactive waste from a nearby nuclear waste storage and reprocessing facility. The original intention was to only use the lake for storage purposes and one day to return the radioactive material to the plant, but this of course didn't work out even close to according to plan, considering the lake very quickly turned lethal. The lake is now one of the most contaminated, polluted, and dangerous places in the entire world, and the radioactivity in the lake is comparable to what it was once like in Chernobyl. Okay, that is just one example of how things can quite quickly go awry and turn deadly. In our number 8 spot today, we have the asteroid. Would it really be a new year if there weren't predictions of an asteroid hurtling towards Earth, threatening life as we know it? Absolutely not. It's the prediction that comes up every year, and when we take a peek at season 6, episode 14 of The Simpsons, titled Bart's Comet, we see the grim prediction come to life in the animation. In the episode, Bart discovers a comet that is heading straight towards Earth, threatening the lives of everyone there. The residents of Springfield quickly begin to panic after learning the news, which leads everyone to count down the days that they have left. At the end of the episode, which I almost said spoilers, but if you haven't seen it by now, are you ever going to watch it? The asteroid doesn't hit the Earth and instead ends up burning up into little pieces, and everyone can live another day in Springfield. Maybe this is meant to foreshadow how those asteroid deflection tests that were carried out earlier in 2022 might actually prove useful in the near future. In our number 7 spot today, we have Big Ben. Because of all of our advancements in technology, the traditional ways of doing things tend to get thrown out for newer, easy-to-use gadgets. This has definitely made our lives a lot more efficient and simple, but is newer technology always the way to go? Big Ben appears a number of times throughout the Simpsons series, but it is always seen with a digital clock instead of the real-world analog clock. Just recently, the great bell of the Great Clock at the Palace of Westminster returned to its original dinging schedule after being mostly silent for about 5 years while it underwent the most extensive renovations done since its initial build. While these renovations recently were completed, something that the Simpsons may be predicting a more modern future or modern approach. At this point, this is one prediction that is doubtful, but who knows, maybe analog clocks will one day be a mysterious part of past human history. In our number 6 spot today, we have Mars colonization. In season 27, episode 16, titled The Margian Chronicles, Lisa hears about a new company called Exploration Incorporated who has a target to colonize Mars, which leads to Lisa signing up for the project. This 2016 episode has people drawing parallels between the company in the show and the real-world company led by Elon Musk, SpaceX, which also has the goal to possibly one day colonize Mars. In the episode, Marge isn't cool with Lisa signing up, which somehow leads to the entire family signing up for the project. Problem is, however, that the date of everything gets moved up from its projected 2026 date to the end of the week. This has people predicting that we may get to Mars sooner than SpaceX's current 2029 projections. Doubtful that it will be by the end of next week, but who knows? Space technology is rapidly advancing, so truly, your guess is as good as mine. In our number 5 spot today, we have the next president. Many people believe that The Simpsons correctly were able to predict the presidency of Donald Trump, and they think that they might be back at it again, this time with his daughter. While 2023 doesn't hold any sort of presidential election, the following year does, which means that people will be starting their campaign trails sooner rather than later. The 2016 Treehouse of Horror episode featured Homer wearing an Ivanka Trump 2028 sticker, and this has people thinking. It's not necessarily a completely unrealistic prediction, whether in this upcoming election or the one that follows. In our number 4 spot today, we have Mind Control Music. In season 12, episode 14, the show invited NSYNC as the guest spot, and also possibly made a prediction for the future of music. Of course, predictive programming isn't a new idea, and people believe it's constantly happening around us, but this episode takes that idea and pushed it even further. In the 2001 episode, we see Bart in a new band with his friends. What they don't know is that their music is actually a psychological operation that is used to send children subliminal messages and control their minds. Like I mentioned, people believe this already to be the case, but the episode really makes you think. Will one day the government be using pop singers and bands to impart subliminal messages to youth all over the world? Hopefully not, but only time will tell. In our number 3 spot today, we have VR food. Season 11, episode 17, titled Bart to the Future, is one that often comes up when people discuss Simpsons predictions, both for things that they think this episode has accurately predicted, as well as things that people think are impending upon us. For this particular prediction, I want to talk about the moment in the episode where we see Homer and Marge eating some sort of food through feeding tubes with VR goggles on. Yeah, VR food. Interesting idea, but in reality, is it really a good idea? I mean, we have to consider if we'd really be enjoying our food this way. Obviously we eat because we have to, but it's also a social activity. If we went to virtual reality food, it would be hard to enjoy a meal out with your friends and family, not to mention the chance of getting motion sick from wearing the goggles, personal experience. Despite my obvious aversion to it, some people think that this is the way of the future. VR is only becoming more and more available, and it is also only getting better. Maybe this is one upcoming technology that we should all start start to look out for. In our number 2 spot today, we have the robot revolution. It's not a new concept or idea. For years, people have been scared of some sort of robot revolution where they turn on us and attack us. And listen, I mean, I've seen iRobot. It makes me nervous too. Some people have taken a moment in season 6, episode 4 of The Simpsons as a prediction of some of the horrors that are to come. In the episode, during a visit to Itchy and Scratchy Land, the robots that are meant to help the guests with their day out start to break down and begin trying to kill the guests. Definitely not the day out that the family thought that they had planned. Although this episode aired in 1994, people believed that this could one day be our future. What do you think? Will the robots and AIs one day turn on us? In our number 1 spot today, we have the economy crash. In the 9th episode of the 24th season, titled Homer Goes to Prep School, some believe that there is a grim prediction for what is to come as it relates to the economy. Basically, in this episode, Homer is at Moe's speaking about how he doesn't believe that society could stand a collapse. As Homer is speaking about this and voicing his opinions, another man overhears him and interjects with his opinion. This man agrees with Homer but adds that there soon will be an economic disaster and that the United States would fall. Homer disagrees with that last bit, and this is when the man pulls out a video to show Homer. Turns out that this man is very clearly trying to lure Homer into his cult as he shows him a video of the upcoming apocalypse that he believes is imminent and asks Homer to join his doomsday prep cult. Hopefully we're not all joining cults this new year, but unfortunately some people believe that with the new year will come an economic crash, and to be fair, outside of TV and The Simpsons, people everywhere are predicting that based on real life events as well, so it's not looking good. On a positive note, however, the episode ends off on a good note. Everyone ends up good, so maybe that's also a prediction for real life and what's to come? Let's hope. Alright?
Starting us off this countdown, we have the Shard. The Shard is a 72-story skyscraper that was built in 2009 and completed in 2012. But somehow The Simpsons knew that this structure was going to be built in London 14 years before it actually was. So in the 1995 episode titled Lisa's Wedding, Lisa visits a psychic that shows her what her future is like. We also get to see what London looks like in the future. As a joke, The Simpsons showed the Big Ben clock as being digital. Now obviously, that hasn't come true. Yet. Now the freaky point is at one point we see this building in the background and it appears to be the Shard. Not only is the structure the same shape as the Shard, but it's in the same location in comparison to Big Ben. Yeah, so somehow they just knew that 14 years later a building was going to be made in that exact location. Super weird. In our 9th spot we have Prince's death. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up and also check out part 1 to the series as well. Prince was an iconic American singer-songwriter. Sadly, he passed away in April of 2016. Now, some believe that he was actually murdered because he was talking freely about chemtrails. Prince believed that the government was deploying planes to spray chemicals in the sky, which was then poisoning the population. Well, Prince actually starred in a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror segment. In this episode, Prince gets killed by Homer. We see Homer choking and beating him. A lot of people then believe that The Simpsons predicted his death. If in the future it's somehow revealed that Prince was murdered, then this prediction will get even freakier. In our 8th spot, we have President Trump. This is probably one of the freakiest predictions that has come true, because who in a million years would have thought that Trump would not only run, but also successfully become president of the United States. So back in 2000, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Bart to the Future. In this episode, Bart gets a glimpse into the future and sees what's in store for himself and his family. Well, in this episode, Lisa is president. During a cabinet meeting, she says, and I quote, "We inherited quite the budget crunch from President Trump." Yeah, so the president before her was Donald Trump. Super creepy. Now, a bunch of writers were asked how they managed to predict this in 2000, and they said that they were just looking for a celebrity that would be funny and shocking as president. So maybe it's just a coincidence, but still, that's so freaky. Moving on to number 7, we have the rigged voting machines. In a 2008 episode, Homer heads to a voting booth to cast his vote. After voting for Democratic candidate Barack Obama, the machine selects Republican John McCain. Homer then sighs and says, "No, I want to vote for Obama," and keeps trying to tap his name. But the machine keeps glitching, and every time he clicks Obama's name, the vote goes to McCain. Well, during the 2012 elections, the exact same thing pretty much happened. There were voting machines which saw people voting for Obama have their votes count towards Mitt Romney instead. There was even video footage of it happening. And to no surprise, people blame The Simpsons for this one. Seriously, how did The Simpsons know that this would happen? Not only did they accurately predict faulty voting machines, but they also predicted that it would happen to Obama. In our 6th spot, we have the Nobel Prize winner. In the season 22 premiere, we see Lisa and her friends with a prediction sheet they made for the Nobel Prize announcements. This episode aired in 2010, and Milhouse predicted that Bent Holstrom would win the Nobel Prize in economics. And what do you know? In 2016, 6 years later, Holstrom won a Nobel Prize in economics, just like The Simpsons said he would. I mean, it really could just be that they did their research and looked up the trends to see who was most likely to win this award, but still, The Simpsons got it going on. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with virtual reality. Back in a 1998 episode, The Simpsons have a scene where a bunch of kids are playing a yard work simulator. Pretty weird, right? The kids are holding garden tools while wearing a headset that looks a lot like a VR headset, literally playing a game about VR yard work. But that's not all. Another example would be the episode titled Lisa's Wedding, which aired in 1995. In this episode, we see Bart at Moe's Tavern playing virtual pool, and then another character playing virtual darts. And then in season 11, episode 17 that aired in 2000, we see Homer and Marge with the same headset having virtual reality food. Now, there are around 8 different episodes where The Simpsons show virtual reality before it even became a big thing like it is today. Moving on, number 4, we have the Beatles. In 1963, 2 Beatles fans recorded a message and sent the tape to the London theater where the band was playing in hopes to get a reply. 50 years later, the 2 heard back from Paul McCartney. He wrote and thanked them for their tape and said, "Better late than never." And somehow, The Simpsons predicted that something very similar would happen. In season 2, episode 18, titled Brush with Greatness, we see Ringo Starr from the Beatles responding to really old fan mail. He said, and I quote, "They took the time to write me, and I don't care if it takes me another 20 years. I'm going to answer every one of them." Although it's not the same Beatles member, it's still a pretty creepy coincidence. Coming in at number 3, we have the election outcome. Back in 2012, it said that The Simpsons managed to predict the exact outcome of the 2020 election results. Again, this one is fairly creepy. So the prediction takes place in a Fox special called Mr. Burns Endorses Romney, and it was for the 2012 presidential election. It's only a minute and about 50 seconds long, but in it we see Mr. Burns in front of a map, showing the red and blue states for the election. Now what's freaky is that they look very similar to the 2020 Biden and Trump electoral map. I mean, at first glance, it looks identical, meaning The Simpsons somehow predicted the outcome of every state. Now, upon closer inspection, they did get one wrong, which was Arizona. Still, how do they manage to pretty much get the exact election results? Keep in mind, the episode is 8 years old. In our 2nd spot, we have the victory. Back in 2008, Simpsons released an episode titled Boy Meets Curl. It was the 12th episode in season 21. Now, in this episode, Marge and Homer both fall in love with curling. It results in them qualifying to compete in mixed doubles curling at the 2010 Winter Olympics. At the end of the episode, Marge leads their team to victory, beating Sweden. Well, in 2018, the US men's curling team beat Sweden and won the gold at the Olympics. So The Simpsons predicted that not only would USA win its first gold medal in curling, but that it would beat Sweden when doing so. Coincidence? I think not. Seriously, how did they do it? And in our number 1 spot, we have the FIFA scandal. In season 25's 16th episode titled You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, Homer becomes a referee in the World Cup because there was a shortage of referees. A lot of them were laid off because they were being bribed. In the episode when Homer is the referee, a woman approaches him and tries to bribe him to fix the game in their favor. Either way, he ends up calling the game fairly and Germany wins the World Cup. Then guess what? A year later, a number of FIFA officials were arrested for taking bribes. Crazy. But not only that, the same year, Germany did end up winning. So, The Simpsons got 2 predictions right in one episode.